So welcome everyone to the session. This session is abusing Teams privacy, security and compliance. So I'll hand you over to our speaker, Nestori Syynimaa, if I've said that correctly. So Nestori, over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And welcome everybody to this session. So as I think that was Martin just introduced me. So my name is Dr. Nestori Syynimaa, and I work as a senior principal security researcher for SecureWorks. And yeah, and this is the title of my talk. I'm going to cover these things today. And for me, it's actually quite nice to see actual live people sitting in audience. So hi there. And sorry that I was not able to make it there, but maybe next year. Okay, so here are a couple of things about myself. So nothing really important here, except that just follow me in Twitter. So I'll be tweeting about Azure AD security things, identity-related security things, and anything in Microsoft, let's say, ecosystem that has something to do with identities or security. So I'm going to cover three things today. So first, that how guest users can extract information from Teams and Azure AD. And then I'm going to show you how you can bypass team security policies and also how you can bypass MCAS or Microsoft Cloud Application Security Teams policies. And I did a similar presentation in Teams Nation earlier this year in May, but there have been some changes from the Teams side and for better this time. That's a good one. And I'm going to tell those to you also. And this is not just fudding or creating fear, uncertainty, and doubt, but I'm just telling you how things actually work. And whenever possible, I'm also telling you how you can mitigate against anything I'm going to show you today. So it's not just hacking, also doing the proper administrative work also. Okay. I think I'm best known in the world for AAD Internals Toolkit, which is a powerful module. It's a script module, which means that you can open it in your favorite, let's say, editor, and you can see what's actually going on in there, and you can use the code in your own scripts. And that's an admin and hacking toolkit. Mostly offensive tools, but there are also some blue team tools and tools for administrating things. And it's an open source, so you can download it from GitHub. Or the easiest way is to get it from PowerShell Gallery. Very easy to use, so just install that module AAD internals and then import it, and you are good to go. So no need to run any installation software, or you don't need to care about dependencies. So just those two commands and you are good to go. And let's start the actual content of the presentation. So first one is extracting Azure AD content as a guest user. And this also includes some Teams related content. And I think this is the most important part of today. So there's a one configuration that can prevent that. Everything I'm showing you in this area subject. So please do the security setting change I'm going to show you at the end of this subject. Yes, so I think it was some point last year. Well, AD Internals Toolkit, it has a lot of functionalities. It's called functions because it's a script-based module, and because there was so much everything, I decided to put them in this kind of easy to understand form, which is called Azure AD and Microsoft 365 kill chain. So each row here represents a row in how they are related to Azure AD of the target tenant. For instance, outsider is just anybody outside the tenant, and guest is guest, of course. User is user, admin is admin, and on-prem admin is then for For instance, if you have synchronizing your users from on-prem to Azure AD, then there's on-prem admin role there. But anyway, today we are going to focus on the guest, and there is a couple of functions. The first one is invoke AD in recon as guest, which means that you can get some recurrence information from the tenant if you are a guest user. And then the other one, which you can actually extract information, is called invoke AD into user enumeration as a guest. So let's move forward. So first of all, what is a guest user? So whenever you are inviting someone outside your organization to your teams, for instance, a guest user record will be created in your Azure AD. And every user, every role has some permissions, and here are the permissions what a guest user can do. So according to the documentation, they can't browse information from the tenant, which is not true. Users can retrieve information about others by providing UPN or GUID, and that's correct. And they can read properties of groups they belong to, and that's correct. And technically also teams are groups, or teams, sites, or whatever, they are groups. So guest users can read information from teams they belong to. And they can't view information about any other tenant object, and that also doesn't, or that's not correct. So they can read information actually. But today we are interested in this one here. So they can retrieve information about others by providing UPN or GUID. So if you know someone's UPN or user principal name or email or their GUID, for instance, for groups, you can get all the information about those. So the user enumeration part is based on this. So if you know the starting point, for instance, someone's name or the group's ID, you can see. Let's start here. For instance, if you start doing the user enumeration as a guest, well, you know the starting point, it's you, and you can see which teams you are a member of. Yeah, and also you can see the other members of that group. So for instance, if you are a member of these teams here, you can see who else is there. And if you know someone's name, of course, if you list the users of teams, you know someone's name, then you can see which teams or groups that user is member of, and so on, so on. So you can do the Azure AD traversal as long as you know a starting point. And this is actually quite typical setting that, okay, you have a teams here and you've been invited there as a guest. And quite often organizations have the dynamic group called all guests here. And this means that you will be added there automatically. And as such, you can list all the members of this all guests group, which means that if you invite someone in your organization, you practically are revealing all the outsiders of your organization you are working with, like your clients and your suppliers or partners. So that's a not good thing. And let me show you how to do this. So I have actually already imported the module here, AD internals, and I've also imported imported the module, and I will also retrieve an access token so that I can do these things. So let's start this. So enumeration as guest, and yeah, let's just do it this way. And I'm gonna users, or let's say results. equals this. And now because I'm a member of multiple tenants, it's going to ask you which one. I'm going to hit number 2. And it shows that they found, or only one user was found. Okay, so let's say group members. So now it's going to list all the members of any group I'm part of. And now it says that it found one group and 12 users. Let's see which kind of users we have here. Say select user principal name, like. I want to show other guests here, so I'm going to say like this. So I found another user here. So one, let's say internal user in that Teams site. So now I can start the browsing as that user. About that. What we have now we have 2 groups and 16 users. So let's try to see what groups we have here. The display name, I hope so. Okay, and is it object? Not sure about that. And the ID, yes. So we found from the team site where we were, we found one internal user, and we found out that that internal user is part of all company users group. And now when we have this ID, I will do this again. Now I'm going to say ID equals this. Now I'm able to see all the all the users of this organization like this. And if this would have been a real life organization, there would be hundreds or even thousands of users I would be able to extract from that organization. And if I say, let's say, if I took the first user here, we can see that there are actually a lot of information about that user. So it's not just the user principal name, but pretty much everything. Your first name, last name, or even what licenses do you have. So a lot of information out here. Okay, so that was the trick. And I blogged about this little less than a little over a year ago. And the very next day, I had a reply from senior program manager for Azure AD, and that there are going to be some changes. And after a couple of days, they fixed this, or they provided a preview feature where you can restrict the user access. And I'm going to show it to you how you can do that. And everybody should do it immediately if you haven't done that yet. So this is the Azure AD portal for my demo tenant. Here I go to users. Here we have user settings. And here we have manage external collaboration settings. And by default, we are interested in this one here. So by default, guest users have limited access to properties and memberships of directory objects. So if this is on, we can do what I just showed you, but you should always select this one. So user access is restricted to properties and memberships of their own directory objects, which means that they can't do what I just showed you. So they can list their own information and the group they are a member of, but nothing else. So even though you would know someone's name, you can't access that information. So always select this option and hit the save button, and you are safe. Okay. So let's move forward. And next, we are going to bypass some team security policies. And first, some background information. So what happens when you sign in into Teams and the Teams client, either the, let's say, FAT client or browser, what happens when you do that? So the Teams client is sending a request to cloud that, hey, can I have the settings of this tenant? And the cloud will return you policies. So it will return you messaging policies, meeting policies, application policies, whatever you have configured for tenant. And then when you access a Teams site, so each Teams site may have their different settings, and the client is asking for those also. And for instance, the messaging policies looks like this. So it's a JSON file which has some properties. For instance, here we can see that allow user edit messages or user delete messages or user chat, they are all set to false, which means that this user who is logged in can't do these kind of things. And then I'm going to show you something related to this somehow. So a few words about client-side security. So there's a thing from MITRE called CWE, or Common Weakness Enumeration, and number 602 is client-side enforcement of server-side security. So this means that for some reason, someone may choose a design that the client is going to take care of security that the server should do. So for instance, here, when the Teams client is going to Teams, it will get those settings. So basically, the cloud says that, okay, user can't do these things, period. So don't let the user do those things. But this really isn't a security thing if only client is taking care of that. And I'm going to show it to you quite soon what that means. So I also posted a blog about this about a year ago. So I found a way that how you can actually bypass these security settings, because they are not real security settings. They are just information provided to client and saying that don't do this. And client can choose to obey those rules or then not. And this was actually the most, well, this is still the most read blog post I've ever posted. So it had like 70,000 readers in a couple of days. Yeah, so you can access Teams via API or application programming interface. There's two options, and the first one is using MS Graph API, which is what Microsoft recommends you to do. And that's very good because there are security enforcements are in place and everything is happening on server side. So you can't do anything that you are not allowed to do. And with Graph API, you can create and manage teams and channels. You can chat, or you can send messages to others. I don't know if you can currently even modify or delete messages, but at least last time I checked, that wasn't possible. And the second option is to use the Teams internal API. So Teams is not using Graph API internally. It has its own API. And there we have client-side security for most things. And with that API, you can create and manage teams and channels, of course, and you can also send, edit, and remove messages if you have entitled to do so. So let's demonstrate this next. So first, I'm gonna pop up again the admin side. So I go to Teams Admin Center. And I'm going to show you some of those policies. So what we have here, we have messaging policies, for instance. These are organization-wide. And here you can say, let's say owners can delete messages, user can delete sent messages, and user can edit sent messages. So this is a like default configuration. And if you set off to everything, that means that nobody can't edit sent messages or delete them in any Teams. And what else we have here? We have organization-wide settings. So this was messaging policy, and then we have settings. So if we go to guest access, for instance, here we can say that that can guest users, for instance, edit, delete, or chat. So you can also do that globally. But these quite often are turned on because then you can restrict per team site at what people can do. So let's go to this user here. He's actually admin of that Teams site. Or owner, I think that's the correct answer. And this user is protected by MCAS or Microsoft Cloud App Security. That's why the notification there. Okay, now we are logged in. And here, when we go to manage team, we can go to settings, member permissions, and here we can see that members are given option to delete their messages, but they are not allowed to edit their messages. This means that now when I go here, I click the 3 button here, so I have delete here, but there's no edit option here because I've set that in my settings that you can do that. But let's go to a member user then, because that was owner. So there's another user here. I want to log in. Okay. So I go to Teams. Yes, so there's no messaging for this one, but I can say something. You are so stupid, so I can do something like this. And here we have the delete option, but we don't have the edit option. Now if I go back, no, not that one. Yeah, it's the correct one. And now if I go to manage team, go for settings, and I say, no, take that one away. So now the user shouldn't have possibility even for deleting that message. So go here. Now you can see that the delete has also gone. Okay, so let's switch to PowerShell then. And now I'm going to demonstrate to you what you can do with Teams API, which is bypassing most of the security settings here, actually not all, but some. So get AD in, okay, too many A's. For Teams, give it to CAS, and I have credentials already for Lee saved here, so it doesn't ask me credentials. Now I can say get AD in Teams messages, and I'm gonna say where content like Now it shows me the message here. So let's try to remove this. And I'm going to provide message ID, this one. Now it says that, okay, you can do that. And that's how it actually should work. So this is actually new and has changed from May. And I last time gave this kind of presentation about Teams. So you actually can't bypass that setting. So if you are not allowed to delete messages, then you can't do that. But you can still edit them. So I'm going to send team message, but I'm going to use the client message ID, this one here. I'm going to provide the new message. Like this. And now it should be replaced by this new message. And I might need to visit some other site, but now, as you can see, we have changed the content of the message. So even though I'm not allowed to edit that. So this can be quite problematic in various cases. For instance, if you have, let's say, some internal site in your organization and someone is, well, doing like I said, I called someone stupid, and you just later on you change your content of your message, so you actually didn't do that. So there are some things that you really can't rely on, and this is one. So even though you say that you can't edit messages, you still can do that. So the actual XML, JSON file, what the Teams client gets back, so it just changes its UI, so it just hides the edit button here, but it doesn't prevent the editing at all. Okay, so that's how you can bypass Teams security settings, and this can also affect some of your compliance things. But after the last presentation I did in this subject, someone asked that how about MCAS, so Microsoft Cloud App Security, and I said that I have no idea, but let's find out, and that's what I actually did. So let's change to, here's my admin. This is not my admin. This one here. So let's go back to my Azure AD, and here we can go to security, and here we have conditional access. And I have created a policy for Teams for Nestor and guests. And basically everything we have here is that we want to use conditional access app control. And we have selected use custom policy, which means that we need to configure that policy in MCAS. And here we are in Compliance Center. And well, it's actually not so easy to find, but from policies, you have Cloud App Security. And if you click that one, you will be redirected to correct place. So just first going to show you that I have connected apps here. So I have connected Office 365. Oh, it's showing some error, nice. And then if we go here, conditional access app control apps, we have Microsoft Teams here actually. So this is the configuration part I need to do. So I can make policies. And then when I go to policies, I've created one called Teams, I suppose. Yes, so block team messages. So I'll just show you what we have here. So we're going to just block activities. And if the application is Microsoft Teams, and if activity type is send item or send team message, it will be blocked. So I can do that. Let's change to user always wrong user. So this Nestor, yes. So, well, actually, let's go back to the other user here. So if I zoom a bit here, you should see that I'm here in Teams, Microsoft.com. But the other user who has the MCAS applied, it has a different URL called team.microsoft.com.mcas.ms. So when you configure MCAS, it's actually in this case it's reverse proxy. So every traffic is going through that reverse proxy. And now, even though I'll go to members, so this is the guy who we have applied that policy. Even though we are owner of this tenant, I can actually do anything here. I can say use conversation, but it says action is blocked, so you can't do that actually. But I think you know where we are heading now, so we pop up the PowerShell. This time we use the credentials of Nestor. Let's try send AAD in. Oh, let's do it this way. Teams messages. Well, just so everything. So where was this? This one here. Yes. So my first Teams. So I think that was the message here. Yes. And this link here refers to thread ID. I can provide the thread. Like this, and now as you can see, there was no error messages here, and then here we have the message. So once again, the MCAS is blocking everything when you are trying to do that in browser, but that really doesn't block it on the backend side or server side. So this is quite annoying, and you also can't do any chat because that's blocked. But if you go here, you can say recipients. And the message should be sent there. And now if I go back here, so we can see that it actually, there's the correct one. No, this is the correct one. Yes, so I'm Lee, and Nestor sent me a message, even though Nestor is not allowed to send any messages. Okay. Yes, so that was it, and time for summary. So guest users can extract data from Teams, and to mitigate that was very easy. So you can restrict guest users' rights to the minimum by switching that switch. And then Teams client is responsible for applying security settings and policies, well, most of them. And now it seems that the deletion part seems to be in forms in the cloud or in the server side, which is a good one. Nice work, Microsoft. But some still can be bypassed with direct Teams API calls. So therefore, I still have to say that the Teams security settings are not a security measure as such. It hides something from the client, but you still can do things even though you are not allowed to. And same goes for MCAS. So that is blocking what you do in browser, but not what you are doing in backend. And with that, thank you. And if you have any questions, please to ask.
Any questions in the room for? Yeah, hold on. Let me. Is the catch box on?
Thanks. I have a question about the back end being exposed. Is there any other policies that can be exposed? For example, direct routing. So I'm thinking around that has its own policies around what you're allowed to call. You know, you're allowed to call a toll number or a high rate number. Have you done any experiment there to see if it's possible to manipulate that on the client side?
Actually, I haven't researched that part. At least not yet, but I'll put it in my list.
Thank you very much. Any other questions in the room? For our online audience, if you've got any questions, just raise your hand in the Teams client and I will try and unmute you. I can see there's some people there. Let's have a look.